All right, so today we're going to start with building our first CRUD app, which is it's always an exciting time because you're actually starting to build stuff that does things. By now we've made some simple routes, we've made some simple templates to display content based on the information that you give. So like yesterday we did the rock, paper, scissors, and that kind of showed up nicely. And I will review it in class if I have enough time, but because you can eat, it's fine. But because it's so, there's so much stuff to cover today, I just want to make sure that we have enough time to cover that before we move forward. So quick backstory. When I first started working in web development, everything I wrote was a CRUD app. Then I moved to my second job, and then everything I wrote was a CRUD app. And then I moved to my third job, and everything I wrote was a CRUD app. And everything for the remainder of my time in web development will be CRUD apps. CRUD app stands for an app that can create, read, update, and destroy records. So I challenge you. You will probably win at least 1 out of 10, but I guarantee you I will win 9 out of 10 times for this one. Name an app that you use on a daily basis, and I will show you how it is a CRUD app. You'll probably win 1 out of 10 times. I will say that I will most likely lose at least once, but 9 out of 10 times I will most likely win. Give me any app on the web and I will show you how it's a CRUD app.
What's the R?
What's read? Create, read, update, and destroy.
ESPN.
ESPN. I can create articles, read articles, update, and destroy articles. Next. YouTube. I can create, read, update, and destroy comments, and I can create, read, update, destroy things when it comes to descriptions for videos and things like that. Amazon, product descriptions, create, read, update, destroy. You can do the same thing with users and credit card numbers and things like that. Now, challenge me with anything. Give me something hard.
Google Maps. You can read it, right?
I can read it. Google Maps in particular uses locations. I can create, read, and update, destroy locations. Okay. One more, and then we'll move on to the actual code itself. Okay. I can tell you one is Twitter. I can't update tweets. Okay, I can create, read. I can't update tweets, but I can delete them.
You can do all 4 too.
The challenge is just give me the idea. I mean, the idea basically behind this whole thing is almost everything that you ever use is a CRUD app in some way, and most of them do all 4.
You can update your profiles.
What's that?
You can update your Twitter profile.
You can update your Twitter profile. Okay, yeah. It's very hard to find something you're not able to create, read, update, and destroy when it comes to modern web apps today. And that's the pattern that we're going to be using pretty much all the time from here on out. Everything is going to be a CRUD app. If you've watched the videos of the people doing their actual final projects, almost all of them are CRUD apps. Almost everything that you use is a CRUD app, and because CRUD is just so prevalent, we're going to be spending quite a bit of time on that today. So to get started, we have this thing called bestiary. I thought this was bestiary, and then all these weird thoughts came to my mind. But a bestiary, just so that we're all on the exact same page with this, a bestiary, from what I example, is just like an encyclopedia of beasts. So it's kind of it's just a table of there's lions and elephants and stuff like that. It's just like a manifest of all these different animals. Okay, it's not bestiality, it's bestiary. Let's see. Go again. Bestiary. Okay. So bestiary again is just a collection of animals of some sort. All right. So we're going to clone this down, and we have a few more things than we did before, and we'll review each one of those. So I cloned it down. I've opened it up in Sublime, and we have more things on the left than we did before. So some of them still look the same. So we still have that gem file. Remember, that gem file is just a list of all the gems that you're going to need for your particular app. The lock file is the versions of it, so that everyone's working off the same version. We still have the README. We still have the app.rb. We still have views, which we're used to. the spec that we got to use yesterday. And then now we're moving into actual proper creating stuff in the database, reading stuff from the database, updating stuff in the database, and deleting stuff from the database. So we have these 3 new folders. So let's just jump, number 1, let's jump into app.rb. So it looks a little bit different. Our Sinatra application now defines a class in app.rb called bestiary. And what Sinatra does, they call this the modular style. We're going to organize all of our routes inside of this particular class called bestiary in order to stay organized. So all of our routes, instead of, it used to be everything goes inside of app.rb, but it was really good for small things. But you can kind of see as you were doing more and more things with rock, paper, scissors, your app.rb file was getting a little bit too long. So we're going to start moving all of the routes into what's called controllers. And before we move forward, I want to go over something called MVC. Now this is very no, not maps, not books, not news. I keep clicking the wrong thing. Now this is really high level, and you might not understand this on the first go, and that's totally okay. Let's talk about this thing called MVC. MVC stands for Model View Controller. And for most modern web applications, the stuff that you use on the web, it follows this particular, the way that it's set up. MVC. Was there a particular way when you went out, like Raymond, when you went out on patrol, were there a certain number of people that you went out on patrol with every single time?
Yes.
Yes. And then were there certain people who did certain tasks, like there was X number of people who did this and X number of people who did something else?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was like a fixed way of going on patrol. Similarly, when we're talking about things like making web applications, this is kind of like a framework to think about. Like every single time that I create a web app, I'm using the MVC framework. Not every time, but most of the time using this MVC framework. Similarly, when you go on patrol, there's a certain number of people that go out every time. There's certain roles that have to be filled every single time. People who specialize in XYZ have to go out with you each individual time. And that's the way that you organize a patrol. And similarly here, this is the way that we organize our code. So MVC stands for Model View Controller. Rails follows this MVC framework. Python usually does the same thing. C# probably does a similar thing. I know Java has MVC as well. So generally what happens is I make some sort of request on the internet. So I make a request. I'm the client making a request to your app. You're the server, and then you hear this request. And then you, inside of your controller, you say like, okay, I hear your request. You're visiting this particular route, which means that I have to do some sort of action. So when you sign up for a new credit card and you fill out all that information, you press submit, like it hears your particular web request and says, okay, what do I have to do now? All right, let me fill out maybe a new thing inside of the database. So it passes all the information into a model, and then the model talks to the database. The model, again, is that thing that directly connects to the database. Remember we were doing like class budget and it connected to the budgets table? That class budget is the model. So again, a controller hears some sort of data coming through. It talks to the model talks to the database. The controller, based off of that, will get some sort of data back from the model and then present it inside of a view. So it kind of goes in this like cyclical thing where it's, I hear web request, you give me some sort of data. Controller is the brains of the operation. I received everything from the outside. Now what do we do with it? It's like sending your mail to the central, it's like I put my mail inside of my mailbox. Somebody picks it up and brings it to, South Dearborn Street, like 2 blocks away. Like there's a big mail postal office 2 blocks away from here. There's thousands of things of mail, and they're trying to think at that point. It's like the central brains. Where does each individual piece of mail go? Like when I send a letter to San Diego, it's going to go through like some other places, but it's kind of like this is going to the East Coast, this is going to the West Coast. The controller is mostly the brains of the operation. Then it'll pass it off to the model. There's not really a good analogy for this one. The controller is the brains, passes off to the model, which connects to the database. And then the view is self-explanatory. It's what shows up on the screen. So that's a high level. You'll see a little bit more of this in just a second. So MVC, model view controller, we're going to first talk about the controllers. So whenever we have anything with like different resources, as of right now, we're just dealing with creating, reading, updating, and destroying animals in our database. So we have an animals controller right here. We're going to organize all of our code so the routes related to one particular model is all in the same place. In our case, we have an animal model, so we create an animals controller, like the brains behind the operation. If we had like a zookeeper model, we would have a zookeeper's controller brain to keep track of everything.
And that would be in where bestiary is. That would be zookeeper.
It would still be under class bestiary, but it would be in its own file called zookeeper's controller. So if we look inside of animals controller, you can see we're just defining routes like we always done, but we've just grouped it within the bestiary class and put it in its own individual file so that everything related to animals, like the animal model inside the database, everything that revolves around animal has its own animals controller. If you take a look inside of app.rb, we're saying that whenever this particular Sinatra application loads, we're going to load all the models and require relative for everything. And then all the controllers we're going to require relative everywhere. So instead of typing require relative of this, require relative of that inside of here, we required it once on lines 9 and 10, and we required it everywhere. So we don't have to think about this as much, because up to this point we've been having to say like require pry, require relative this file, require relative that file, require relative of like this particular image. And now with these two lines 9 and 10, we don't need to worry about that. It's already set up for us. And correspondingly, every single piece of code that we have also has a spec file. So if you look under spec, there's a controllers folder that matches up with this. And there's an animal controller spec that we're going to be writing a bunch of tests into. So two things look a little bit new to us right now. We saw views before. That's where all the views were kept. We have spec, which is all of our tests were found. Now we have controllers, and a controller, again, is just the brains behind the operation. When somebody makes a request, the controller is the one that handles all of the logic that happens behind the scenes. Real quick, so we don't know what this does quite yet, but if you had to infer, what do you think this particular block of code between lines 2 and 5 do? Sure. Okay, Aaron.
It's a GET request.
Okay.
So it's a request being sent across the server to that destination.
Okay.
Animals it's taken in. Can't read that. I think that might say animal.
Yep.
I'm not sure what that's doing. But
okay.
It looks like a class and a method.
Mm-hmm.
And it's assigning that to animals. It's
okay.
going to the ERB file, animals index, and it's looking for local methods, variables, animals.
Okay.
Assigning animals.
Yeah, that's pretty much right. So we have a class bestiary under this animals controller file. So it's basically, this is a controller. It's the brains behind the operation. Whenever anyone makes a request, a GET request to /animals, what's going to happen is everything between the do and the end between lines 2 and 5. On line 3, it sets a local variable animals to the capital A animal, so the class, remember the model that connects to the database, and grabs all the records inside the database for the animal class. So this grabs all the animals inside of your database. Then I'm going to load the ERB file called animals index, which I don't think exists. Oh, it does. And what it's going to do at that particular point is I know I need local variables. The local variable I need is animals, and the value of that animals is going to be line 3 animals. And it looks like if you jump over here and under animals index, I have, looks like I am going to be iterating over a local variable called animals. Animals each do animal, and I'm going to do something over here. All right, so let's get started with this. First command I run is bundle install, just to make sure I have all the gems that I need. All right, today we're going to be using something called SQLite. It's another version of SQL, but all your commands are identical. All right, so let's bundle exec rake db drop, just in case I have it. I'm going to create a database. Again, so I'm dropping the database if it exists. I'm going to create an empty database called bestiary.sqlite3. I'm going to migrate everything over, and then I'm going to seed the database if anything exists. Okay. Let's take a look at the migration before we move forward. So where do I find my migration file? Which folder do I find that in? DB. All right. Where do I go next? I want to find my migrations.
Migrations.
There is no migrations.rb.
Seeds.
It's not seeds. I'm looking for my migration files. Nope.
Look at the DB folder.
It's the first thing underneath the DB folder.
Oh, migrates its own file.
Yeah, it migrates its own folder. All right, so under migrate the folder, I have a create animals migration. And a migration basically is a script that will populate your database with things. So remember when I'm doing rake db create, I'm just creating an empty database. No tables, no columns, nothing. It's just an empty database called bestiary.sqlite. It's like creating a frame for a house. There's nothing inside of your house at this particular point. There's no bedrooms, there's no floors, there's no stairs or anything like that. My rake db migrate will basically say, like, I want you to, like, you go up to your contractor, say, first I want a living room. All right, the contractor puts in a living room. Next, I want 3 bedrooms. Okay, so let me build you some stairs and put the 3 bedrooms on the top floor or something like that. What we have here is we're creating a table called animals with 2 things. One is called with 2 columns. One column is name and one column is description. So each animal has a name and a description. It's pretty simple. Now let's take a look at seeds. All right, looks like I'm creating a few things. I'm creating a dog with a description of rough and a cat with a description of meow, and so on and so forth. I did not, I do remember this now. I didn't know what starfish sounds were, so I just did star star. And I didn't know what narwhals were. I didn't actually know that narwhals were real animals. I thought it was like some sort of like online stoner thing, but a narwhal is actually a real animal. I didn't know. It's like a unicorn for a whale. So like, it actually exists. It's a unicorn whale. It's on planet Earth. It's a real thing. I've never seen it in real life, but according to planet Earth, it is a real thing. All right, so we've done everything. Let's load things up. So we'll do bundle exec shotgun to load this particular app up. So I'm loaded on 127.0.1.93.93, which is just localhost 9393. Let's jump over localhost 9393. It's broken. It doesn't know this ditty. Let's find the particular route that we're talking about. So if I jump into, where do I find in my new app, where do I find my all my routes? It used to live in app.rb, but it's not there anymore. Controllers being the brains of the operation. So it says, okay, whenever someone makes a request to get animals, it's going to do something. So we'll jump over here. We'll go to /animals. And it looks like, here we go. On line 3, it grabbed all the animals from the database, and those animals are the ones that we've seeded inside the database, so all of these here. It grabs all the animals, loads up this particular ERB file under Views, Animals Index. And it has some local variables, animals with a value of animals here on line 3. It looks like I'm going to use the local variable animals on this particular ERB file. And there it is on line 4. So I have an H1 of animals. There you go, that H1, the H header 1, the largest thing on the page for animals. And I have an unordered list, UL, U for unordered list, and I'm iterating over each one of those animals, creating a link for it, and then linking it to their particular animal name. As of right now, this doesn't work. So if I go here, I'm pretty sure this blows up. It doesn't know this ditty because we haven't written that particular code yet. But as of right now, like, we are able to read all of the animals inside of our database. Let's jump into writing some tests. So where are my tests found? Spec. All right, so we've kind of given you some things to get started for create, read, update, and destroy. And we're going to start just with, let's start with C. We're going to do C for creating. So we need a way to get new records inside of our database. We want to be able to create new animals inside of our database as of right now. So let's think about when we create an entry, it requires 2 routes. The first one is one route to show the form. Like, in order to create a new animal in the database, we need a form to actually show up on the page. And then 2, we need a route to actually create that form. So we're going to try to create tests even before we write the code so that we can think about what we want our code to do without having to worry about all the specifics quite yet. So let's just say that we want this first thing should show us a form. It shows us a form. So I'm going to follow that given, when, then protocol. So given, what do you need to set up the test? When, what code are you executing? And then, what do you expect as a result? So given, I want to make a GET request to get to the form. Do I need anything to set myself up? I do not need the animals. Right now I'm just trying to get I just want to see a form on the page to create a new animal. So do I need anything to get started? No, we're good. We don't need this given. All right, when is what code am I executing? We're going to make a request to get /animals/new. And then I expect maybe the last response.body to include create a new animal. So I'm following this given, when, then principle. Given, what do you need in order to set up the test? When, what am I executing? And then what do I expect at the end? So given, I don't need anything because I'm just making a GET request. So my GET is the when, like this, I'm making a request to /animal/new. And then my response is saved as last response. And I expect that particular body, like what shows up on the page, to include the words create a new animal. So we're going to run this. I don't know why we're running this because we haven't wrote any code yet, but we'll just do it. Bundle exec rspec. We have something that blows up. It says, I expected the body to include create a new animal, but instead I have an H1 of not found. That's good. We never actually defined a route at all. So we're going to jump back over into our animals controller, and we're going to create a new thing called get /animals/new. And that's going to load the ERB file called animals new. So let's jump into, let's create a new view called animals/new. So where are all my view templates? Under views, all right. And then here's that animals folder. I'm going to throw a new thing called new.erb. And then inside of here, I'm just going to have a h1 of create a new animal. I run my test one more time. Everything should pass. So again, all I've done is I've written a test that basically says it shows us a form of some sort. So whenever anyone makes a GET request to /animal/new, that the last response that comes back should have create a new animal somewhere on the page. And that's what we've got here. So it just says create a new animal. But as of right now, like that's not a really good thing to test, because all we're saying is it shows create a new animal on top. So what we're going to do is we'll throw a few extra expect blocks in there. Maybe we'll have the word description should be on there, and the word name should show up there as well. So red, green, refactor. So let's make sure that this is red. So it's red. I made a failing test. Now I'm going to create a form really fast. And again, all of this stuff that I'm saying today is directly coming from the curriculum. I have a giant form right here. Kind of read through this so that we understand what's going on. So we have an HTML form. The form, like when I hit submit, it's going to post to /animals. And then I have a whole bunch of stuff. Each of this is divided into small little divs, 3 divs. So you're going to enter the name of the animal, you're going to enter the description of the animal, and then you're going to hit submit.
What does the for attribute do? Label?
It's mostly for screen readers. Yeah. You technically don't need this. Like this will work without lines 4 and 9. It'll for screen readers, if people who are hard of sight, like they can't see it, the screen reader will actually read through it and talk about what each individual line is going to say. I'm not terribly familiar with that, but it's a huge part of web accessibility these days. I know that large companies, if you don't have these label fors, you can actually get sued, and most of the time people will win. So there are patent trolls, which are just bad people who look out for patent issues and then sue companies, and then most of the time they'll win. There's also what's called accessibility trolls, meaning that if your website is not accessible, like if a screen reader cannot read this when they're reading through the HTML, they can sue you. Generally speaking, they go after large companies like Coca-Cola, and we had to do this for payday lending and things like that. So you want to make sure you have these labels just for accessibility standards, but this will not show up on the page. All right, so let's run these tests. Bundle exec rspec, and everything passes. Let's run shotgun, bundle exec shotgun, and we're going to run our app and navigate to /animals/new. We created that new form, remember? Now we have this new form that we had. Remember that H1 of create a new animal, and then name with a box for you to enter your name, and then description to do this as well. So let's create a new animal. Let's say we call it hamster, and we'll give it a description of ham, and we hit create. Before I hit create, what do you think is going to happen? Is it going to create something inside the database, or is it not going to do anything? Let's jump back to our controller. Not going to do anything. Why do you think it's not going to do anything? I do need a post request, yeah. So Sharif is right. If we take a look at my form here, it says I'm expecting a post to /animals. And as of right now, I don't have a route that says post to /animals. So if I actually hit this create right here, nothing's going to happen. It's going to give me a 404. It says Sinatra doesn't know what to do. That's great. We can move on to the next thing, which is this particular test. So we can actually see the form on the page. We've tested that. Now we want to, when we post to that particular route, we want to save something inside of the database. So instead of torturing you and typing each individual thing out, I'm just going to copy and paste this, and we'll go over it. Fix up some of the spacing here. Oh my. Okay. All right. So we have two tests under post create. And again, this particular block between 24 and 40 is just trying to test the creation of some sort of record inside the database. First line, it creates the animal record. So we're following that given, when, then principle. So given, what do I need in order to set things up? I know that since I'm posting to something, I need to create parameters. So this is the given. I need to set up params. So params, I'm creating a new animal with the name of doggy and the description of whatever this thing is here. The when is what's actually happening. So I'm actually executing this particular piece of code, and then the then, what's my expected output? Now you'll notice that there are differences, very small differences between line 18 and line 28. That slight difference is a parentheses versus a curly brace. Curly braces generally mean I'm going to take an action, versus parentheses is I'm going to evaluate this. So last response is already evaluate. It already exists, and so I'm just doing last response.body. So I'm not executing anything that doesn't already happen, that has not already happened. On the other hand, this curly brace here is saying I'm going to actually execute this particular piece of code. So I expect when I execute this particular piece of code, it's going to change the animal count, the number of animals that are inside the database. There's that active record that we did in week 4 by 1. So again, I expect when I post to animals with these parameters that the number of animals that show up in the database is going to be increased by 1. So that's that first test here. After I create it, I expect, so I have this given, when, and then. So given, again, I have the same parameters as before. I'm going to post, this is the then, and then I'm going to grab the new animal. When I post to /animals with these particular params, like when you sign up for something online, right? You sign up for like a new service and you press submit, it'll redirect you to like a home page most of the time, right? Or when you create like a listing on Craigslist and you press submit, most of the time it'll just redirect you to that particular listing that you posted on Craigslist. Again, given, this is what I need to set up the test. When, this is what I'm executing in order to set up the test. And then this is what I expect. So I expect the last response to have a status of 302, 302 being that redirect that we were talking about. Remember, 200 is, yes, I'd like to go on a date with you. Everything is good. 300 is, I acknowledge you sent me something, but let me redirect you to my friend. 400 is something is wrong with you, like you did something incorrectly. And then 500 is, I have bad food poisoning. Something is internally happening on my end. So yeah, so we wrote these tests here. Let's run the code. Let's run the tests and see everything blow up. All right, so I have one test passing, that's that green dot right here, and then 2 Fs for 2 failing tests. That's what we expect, red, green, and then refactor. So I'm going to create a route called post to /animals. That's what we've got right here. It's a post to /animals. How do I create an animal? How do I save something inside the database using active record?
Create exclamation.
I could just do a create. Yeah, let's just do animal.create with an exclamation and then key and value.
Would be like name and description.
Name and description. So you're saying name something and then description something. Okay. How do I get to what I entered on the form? Params what?
Name and params description.
Yep, params name and then params. So whenever I fill in anything inside of a form, whenever I hit the submit button, it saves it into a global hash called params. So from the form, I enter the controller, and I have access to this particular hash called params. Has a name and a description, and I'm going to create a new animal. Let's just see if this works. So we have 2 tests that are failing. Let's see if we can make one of them pass. All right, so I have two green dots, meaning I have 2 green passing tests, and then I have a failing test. So we did red, we did green. I'm going to refactor real quick. Sinatra is actually smart enough to look for the key and values and match it up directly to each individual column on your particular model, which is kind of cool.
Is there a difference or one where you would use one over the other with dot save?
So create. So the question was, when would you use dot create and when would you use dot save? Create is actually so the create on line 12 is basically these 2 things. It creates a new instance of it, and then on another line it saves. So it creates and saves at the same time. That's what create does. So when would you use it?
Is this preference?
It's just preference.
Okay.
Yeah. I prefer to use create because it saves me 1 line of code.
Okay.
Some people do not like that. Some people like to explicitly do it, but it's really personal preference. So we've passed 1 test. And I've refactored it. Let's see if it runs now. Please be 3 with 1. Ooh. Unknown attribute captures for animal. I don't know what that is. Let's put a try and figure it out. Let's take a look inside of params. So params, I have name and description, and then captures. I don't know what this is. Let's look at what the class I'm talking about. So it looks like I'm not dealing with a hash. I'm dealing with an indifferent hash. I have no idea what that is because I don't really use Sinatra very often. But it looks like it's not allowing me to save because it doesn't know what captures is for an animal. So it knows name, it knows description, but it does not know captures. So let's actually go back to Raymond's way of doing it. My refactor was bad. Let's just run the test to make sure everything passes. And you're starting to see the value of these tests because, like, you're making sure that your end result is something that you want. You can change whatever code you'd like in the middle of it, but I know by having these tests here, I know what I want at the very end of things.
Is there a captures column in your migration?
There is not. No, I think it just comes in based off of params.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes in from the form. I don't know why. So as of right now, we're passing everything except for it's not redirecting me to a new animal. Okay, so there's something nice. It's called redirect to /animals /animal.id. I think I have a typo here. Can anyone figure it out? Double quotes. So again, I'm here on my form. It says create a new animal up top, and then it's going to post to /animals based on whatever I enter here. So I hit submit. It goes into my controller, the brains of my operation, gets to post animals. So it creates an animal into the database, and then it will redirect me to that particular animal's page. So let's run this test and make sure everything runs. Did I blow something up? All right, let's take a look. It says name error, undefined local variable or method animal for bestiary on line 13 of the animal's controller. Line 13 of the animal's controller. /animals animal. All right, this kind of works. Can anyone figure out what the issue is? I'll give you a hint, is on this line.
Internet.
What's that?
Animal.
Well, kind of. It's what do you expect this result to be?
Capital animal.
It's not capital animal.
It's a true assumption.
So this will return me an integer of some sort. So Aaron's right. But animal as a local variable doesn't exist. I need animal in the front. So animal basically says I have a local variable called animal that only exists between lines 11 and 14. And the value of that is going to be this newly created animal in the database. From there, once I create the animal, it has an ID number. Let's find out if this works. Now let's take a look at animal. I have an animal. I saved into the database because I did this create with a bang. The name is going to be doggy, and the description is this thing right here. Now, when I save it into the database, it has an ID number. So when I do redirect to /animals/animal ID, it'll actually say go to animals/15. When I didn't have this animal equals this thing, it just doesn't really work because animal doesn't exist. So now we have 3 examples and 0 failures. We've done 2 things so far. Let's go to /animals. This is not working. As of right now, I have all of these animals here, and you can kind of see I have like 15 doggies because I keep running the tests over and over, and right now it's using the same database. So I have all of these different animals, and so I can see all of them. When I click on each individual one, we haven't created the view for this quite yet, so it says I don't know what to do here. I don't know what you want me to do. I can also create a new animal. Give me something unique. Maybe hamster. Can you guess that I have a hamster? Description goes here. So I'm going to create this animal, and then it's going to create it into the database and then redirect me to that particular animal /17. But you can kind of see I don't have an individual view for each animal yet. If I go back to the list of all the animals, you'll see hamster right at the bottom. So it did save it into the database successfully. Now, let's turn our focus to showing off a record that already exists. We already know the URL for this action is basically /animals/4/7/10. You can see on the bottom left-hand corner. It's going to /animals/whatever the ID number is. But what else do we need to know about this particular action? So let's jump over to our specs. Maybe we will go to, so we can CRUD, so we can create records, so we can see the form, we can create the new thing. So the second letter is read. So I want to do a few things. Actually, this one I think we can knock out really fast. This get index. Index is for all of them. So let's, yeah, this one should be pretty quick. I'm just going to do it shows us all of the animals. And then I'm going to we're going to do the given, when, then. Given, what do we need to do to set up? We need anything to set up to make a GET request?
We need all the animals.
What's that?
We need the animals.
We do need the animals. We do need all the animals. Looks like maybe we'll create 2 or 3. So let's just do 3 times do animal.create name description. Well, let's just do it. Let's just create 1 animal. It's fine. We will create a cat eats tuna fish. So the given, we do need something to be set up ahead of time. We do need to create at least one animal inside of our database. So given, we're going to do this on line 9. We're good. When is what's being executed on the page. So I'm going to make a request to get/animals. Then the then is what we expect at the very end. I'm just going to copy most of this code from right here. So I expect the last response.body to include, looks like animals. I also expect that this particular body to have the name of the animal that I created, which is cat. Now let's just call it cat123. Just make sure that we're absolutely certain. Let's run the tests. We have 4 examples and 0 failures. So this test is good. Let's move on to the individual show page, and then we'll take a quick break. We'll just copy everything over, and we'll review what we've got. So describe get show. So I'm able to read all of the animals, and I want to see the details about one individual animal. So it shows details about one individual animal. But we're following that given, when, then principle. First things first, I'm going to create an animal because that's what I need in order to make sure that this is going to work every single time. So I'm going to create the animal, and then I'm going to, that's the given. The when is what's being executed. I'm going to make a get request to /animals / that particular animal's ID. I expect that when I visit that page, it should have dog and then the description as well. So whenever I visit the individual animals show page, it's going to list all of the information that I have right here. On the exec RSpec, everything blows up because we don't have a route for that quite yet. Where do all of my routes go? Jump back over to the controller. I like personally to put all of my gets on the top and all of my posts at the bottom. I'm going to do get /animals /ID. So whenever anyone makes a get request to /animals / whatever the ID is, I'm going to find that particular animal inside the database and save it to the local variable called animal. From there, I'm going to load an ERB file, the view file, under animals show with the local variables being animal with a value of animal on line 12. So we'll create a new show page real quick. So show.erb, save it under animals right here. And we're just going to have a name and a description on here. Run this. We have 5 examples, 0 failures. Let's see this in real life. Hopefully this works at this particular point. So we're able to see all the animals, and you can see I have like 50 doggies now because I keep running the tests over and over. If I click on an individual one, all goes well. I should not get a blow-up page. I should actually see what's going on. So I click on this, it takes me to /8, and it shows me the name and then the description. I don't really like this. Let's change a few things. Maybe we'll have information about maybe. So I was with my niece all weekend, who is like 13 months old, and all of those songs that come out of children's play boxes and stuff are just like nightmares. It was just kind of like the sheep goes bah, like like I had to listen to that over and over again. It was horrible. So I'm going to torture you all with it. I'm just going to say the animal name goes animal description. Refresh this page. Hopefully it'll show up a little bit differently. It says information about the sheep. The sheep goes bah. And let's go to another one. Just choose a random number between like 1 and 15. 9.
Oh, we were on 9?
We were on 8.
Oh, okay.
So information about another record, the 9th record of animal in the database. Information about the doggy. The doggy goes this thing. Now, one last thing, and we'll take a break. It's very important that you put this, the one with like a specific ID, underneath the thing that says new. And the reason is because code reads from top to bottom. So when you start loading up this code and then your computer's figuring out what to do with it, it reads from top to bottom. If I had this particular line of code at the very top, like above line 9, it's going to look for, and I go into /animal/new. Let's actually just see what happens. If I go to /animal/new, it's going to blow up. It says, I couldn't find an ID of new. Because it reads from top to bottom, this gets loaded first. So whenever I look for anything after this slash sign, it's going to be saved as ID. So when I looked for a new thing, it thought the ID that I was talking about was going to be the new one. So again, always have this new thing above each individual show. I refresh it now. Instead of getting this error page, I actually get the entire form.
Where does that ID params come from? Is that the database or is that just Sinatra?
So params is two things. Params is if I have a particular form and I fill it out and I hit submit, everything gets saved inside of params. The other part of params is it looks inside of your URL. So your URL, you can kind of see like when I was doing animal/5 or something like that. And if I were to put a binding prior right here, refresh the page. I'm stuck in a pry session. It keeps spinning. So I'm right here. What did that happen? I mean, try.
Require part?
I might need to require pry. It worked before. All right, here I am. I'm stuck at this point. All right, so if I look inside of params, I'm going to quit this whole thing. Something blew up. All right, let's take a look at params. Even though I didn't like fill out a form, because I have things inside the URL, like this colon right here basically says like it's going to be some sort of user input. Like something is going to change every single time. It's not going to be a constant. That's what that colon in the front means. So it's when I visited /animal/10, the colon ID was replaced with 10. So I have access to that particular ID number inside of params.
Is that what you want to do? That's what confused me last night. So the throw that kind of got changed to the rock, paper, scissors.
Mm-hmm. So the throw inside of rock, paper, scissors. Yes, that is what it is.
If you go that one time.
So yesterday inside the rock, paper, scissors, you could make a get request, right? With throw.
It was /play/throw.
Yeah. So yesterday, let's jump back over. this thing right here. So get play / colon throw. Similarly, you can just make a get request, which is basically says /play / anything. That /anything is going to be saved under params under the throw key. And then you can access it there. So you can do /play / scissors, and then throw would be equal to scissors. And then you could do /play / rock, and the throw would be saved as rock. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back at 10:50, and we'll finish up here.